Okay, so I'm delighted to be joined now by Daniel Kennedy and Akshay Arora from Ingredion. Daniel is Director of Platform and Business Development at Ingredion's plant-based protein unit in the USA and Canada, while Akshay is Director of Innovation, Protein Fortification. Just in case you didn't know, Ingredion is a global ingredients solutions provider focused on expanding plant-based protein offerings. They develop sustainable, clean label plant proteins from sources such as peas, fava beans, and many more, which cater to the growing demand for alternative proteins. Their work includes ingredient innovation, texture optimization, and product formulations for various food applications. So Akshay, Daniel, welcome to Protein Production Technology International.
Great to be here.
Great. Thank you, Nick.
It's great to have you with us. Now, we've got quite a lot to get through and not a huge amount of time. So we're going to start off talking about product categories. In what areas are there significant opportunities for brands to innovate with plant-based protein products? I'm thinking meat alternatives, dairy, etc.
Yeah, so I think you'd be surprised, Nick, that really the growth is in snacks and powders or dry blended beverages, maybe ready to drink beverages. As people are in the post-COVID world, they're going back to work more on the go and looking for convenience and taste and nutrition. And so we're seeing significant opportunities in snacks. Think of bars and, beverages. And then a little bit beyond that, think about the convenience of snacks like extruded snacks, simple ingredients such as tortillas, where consumers are looking for protein to deliver their daily needs. So it's quite clear that, there's well over 70% of consumers are seeking protein and looking to get it in various forms. Bars, beverages are naturals, but, I think they're seeking new opportunities and experiences beyond the bars and beverages to deliver that protein that they need on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Akshay?
No, I echo Dan. I think in general, at a high level, there is more awareness from the consumer perspective. How do we supplement some of the animal-based products that we are eating, and how can we lower our meat consumption, our animal-based protein consumption, and what are the substitutes we can have from the plant side? So I think the growth potential is everywhere, but consumers are constantly looking for what new ideas I can try for some of the traditional meals that I consume on a day-to-day basis.
Mm. Now, in terms of sustainability, I know that's a very important facet of your business. What role does it play in consumer preferences for plant-based products, and how does Ingredion address those concerns, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we did a 2-year study and found that, well over 50% of consumers have actively made a change in their lifestyle to accommodate sustainability. However, not enough. So we know that well over 70% of consumers are looking to make some type of significant change based on global warming and also carbon footprint. So these are two kind of buzzwords, or let's say initiatives that consumers are really looking to benchmark upon. And so we know that the work's not done. And this is where plant-based protein can play a very significant role in this. As we know, a lot of our products are based on pulses that are nitrogen fixing. So they are 8 times less carbon producing materials than typical animal counterparts. And so definitely making a switch. Consumers are looking for those opportunities, but not really looking to compromise that taste and texture. So, I think that's the challenge that we face, is how do we align those tastes and textures while hitting those key metrics that consumers are looking for to reduce their sustainability or improve their sustainability in their food.
Mm-hmm. Based on what you know about those consumers, what aspects of sustainability resonate most with them?
So again, I would say the carbon footprint and global warming messaging seem to be the ones that stand out the most. And so, front of pack claims, or just the inherent knowledge that a plant-based alternative is going to be more sustainable than its animal counterpart.
Akshay, are there any innovations Ingredion's developing to make those ingredients more sustainable?
Absolutely. If you think about sustainability and carbon footprint, a lot of it comes down to how the crops are grown and how they are processed. And by nature, as Dan explained, pulses have very low carbon footprint. They fix nitrogen. But the specific innovations we have created is we have dry milled portfolio, which is saying without using a lot of water, without using a lot of energy, we can take these pulse crops and convert them into protein-rich ingredients. An example of that is our ultra performance line from our Canadian facility. So these are the crops that grow in Canada and North America, and we convert them in Canada or North America. And they have very little or very, very small footprint compared to some traditionally processed proteins. And in 2022, our ultra performance portfolio got recognized in plant-based world because of their sustainability.
Mm-hmm. And generally, what are some of the challenges that companies such as Ingredion have in making plant-based proteins more sustainable?
I think one of the elements in sustainability is developing a traceability all the way to the farm level so that you can start accounting for scope 1, 2, 3 level of emissions all the way from farm to the final product that consumer is eating. So that traceability, I think, there is a lack of common standard, but we are working very closely with the market leaders like How Good, who are trying to bring together a large proportion of the food industry together with different parts of the value chain. So our accounting standards start to get more harmonized. I think that itself is the biggest challenge that I see.
I think I've written about the collaboration you have with How Good in the past. Now we're going to talk about technical expertise now. How are you leveraging your technical expertise to help customers create their products? What kind of support and services are you offering?
Yeah, I think we have a saying here in innovation that all innovation starts with the customer and ends with the customer. So we put a lot of effort and energy into understanding the pain points that customers and consumers feel in each category, and then start to break it down into how do we translate that voice of customer into very specific product target or product functionality that can alleviate some of those problems. And the way we try to solve that is our biggest strengths area are applications, which means that if there is a customer anywhere in the world trying to make a certain application, we have that in-house expertise. So our goal is not just to create highly functional, great tasting ingredients, but also understanding how they end up in the customer application and what kind of operational challenges, cost and use challenges, or performance challenges a customer is going to face. And we try to solve them, understand them ahead of time. In several cases, we have done co-creations with customers and developed very specific solutions for them based on their unique circumstances, based on this expertise that we have.
And are you providing any market insights or consumer trend data to help those customers develop their products?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a proprietary technology we call Atlas that looks at consumer needs and wants, and we take that and develop ingredients against it. And I think it's a little bit of a custom shop, because as we discuss, something that might be snacks related requires functionality, a suite of ingredients to deliver on the consumer need, versus something that might be, alt dairy or plant-based dairy might require a different suite of ingredients. And so not only looking at the functionality, taste, and delivery, but also the consumer economics, sustainability. And so kind of putting the complete picture together with that technology. So looking at those consumer insights and delivering against white space that may not exist, both in ingredients and also from a final product delivery as well.
And Akshay, presumably the information that you can glean from Atlas helps you in your job.
Absolutely. And one way it helps us is we have very rich sensory maps, and they give you a very deep insight into flavor and texture, mouthfeel, those kind of attributes. So let's say if a customer wants a product with a more crispiness or less crispiness, so we have that well documented. An example of that is chicken nuggets and alternative chicken nuggets. What kind of levers you have to manipulate those texture attributes, but which texture attributes matter that truly drive consumer liking. So we go to that level of detail, and that kind of knowledge we have found our customers find very useful, and it supplements some of their in-house knowledge on how do you slowly and gradually move your products to higher liking by the end consumer.
Now, we talked previously about the challenges that you face as an ingredient producer and supplier, but based on your work in the field, what are some of the key challenges that you're helping your customers overcome in formulating their products?
I think it comes down to 4 key things. One is performance in terms of functionality. How do you get the application to stay stable over a period of its intended shelf life? The second big one is taste. How do you create a product with the protein plus its supporting cast that gives you that desirable taste and texture? Third is around nutrition. Plant-based proteins, they come with inherently different set of nutritional challenges compared to animal-based protein. How do you overcome? And we have developed some specific solutions to address those concerns. And last piece, which I think is a big driver economically, is the cost in use. You can have fantastic performing, technically advanced ingredients, but if you are not able to utilize at a scale or affordability, it's not going to be adopted by the market. So we do pay a lot of attention into how do we create a unique set of solutions that is not only high performing, but also affordable from a customer and consumer point of view.
Now, I mentioned at the start that you're producing pea and fava. I'm sure there's a lot more products than just pea and fava beans. So could you just tell me about some of your ingredients and solutions that you offer to support the development of your customers' products?
Yeah, I can start and I'll ask Dan to supplement. One is we have a very comprehensive set of pulse-based portfolio. So you mentioned two, pea and fava, but beyond these, we have a very good chickpea and lentil-based portfolio. In addition to that, we have dabbled in quinoa. We have looked at cellular-based proteins. We have looked at potato-based proteins just to understand how do we bring out the best possible solutions out for our customers. In addition to that, we have launched a pea rice blend recently in the market. Again, rice is expanding our portfolio a little bit more. And the thought there is the purpose there is you provide a better solution for nutrition in this particular case and solve some of the customer problems if they want to make protein-based claims. Boosting up that protein quality with pea rice blend allows the customer to do that. And Dan, please chime in with your thoughts.
Yeah, because when it comes to the customers and consumers, sometimes they'll have a hero ingredient. Chickpea is very recognizable, very clean for some people. And a lot of these ingredients develop taste textures that the consumers and customers are looking for. So, I think the pulses can be very diverse. And the fact that we have intimate knowledge on many of these compounds, which also includes intimate knowledge of the protein or the ingredients that might be looking to replicate, really matters because, again, the taste, texture, nutrition, ultimately cost is really going to matter. And having a suite of proteins really allows our customers to develop products based upon the outcome that they're looking for, rather than having a singular solution that has multiple functionalities, may not deliver on everything that a consumer or customer might be looking for.
I mean, presumably all of these different pulse products, they have different benefits in terms of their taste profiles or their nutritional profiles. So are you able to discuss how some of those ingredients contribute to the nutritional profile, such as protein content, fiber, vitamins, minerals, etc.?
Yeah, I think one piece you have to pay attention to is the source. For example, there are pulses, but not all pulses give you equivalent impact when it comes to taste. Fava tends to work very well with alternative dairy or dairy-like applications. Lentil and pea work very well in savory type applications. So that's one way to think about it. Another way is what format of ingredient that you have. If you have something like flour, it is a very clean label ingredient. You can put pea flour on the product and it can easily replace some of your chemical sounding names or modified starches from the label. Then there are concentrates. Concentrates are basically 55 to 60% protein, but they are also very balanced with fiber content and vitamins and mineral content that come with them, right? And then there's a third kind, isolates, which are very rich in protein, but very low on the fiber and other aspects. But that is okay because sometimes our customers are looking for a high protein claim and consumers are looking for protein-rich foods. So in those cases, then isolate becomes a better option for some of our customers.
Dan, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so one other aspect that I think is important is that the inherent starch that is in a lot of these pulses and can be incredibly functional. and can also, mean that a formulator or customer may be able to eliminate other ingredients that may be negative from a nutritional standpoint or negative from a labeling standpoint. So, I think that's one other beautiful aspect of the pulses in the products that we tend to formulate with. They tend to have a lot of other functionalities that, can be anti-nutritional in some aspects. And then, as Akshay mentioned, those micronutrients, those fibers are really critical as consumers are looking for more out of their snack foods in their daily lives.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the key challenges that we're always talking about, speaking with your customers, is creating products that replicate the taste, texture, and mouthfeel of the products they're supposed to be replacing, dairy or meat. So I'm just wondering how Ingredion is addressing these challenges. So how are you ensuring that your proteins have a sort of neutral or clean taste, and avoiding, I think, particularly those off flavors commonly associated with some proteins, not all? Akshay?
Nick, this is a very good question. I think it starts with that fundamental understanding that nature has made all these proteins very differently. For example, if you think about animal-based proteins like meat or dairy or egg, these were designed to survive in a water-rich environment. When you think about plant-based proteins, whether it's a pea or faba, these were designed by nature or evolved in nature to survive in a very dry environment or water deficient environment. So the result of that is they behave very differently when the water, which is a major component of food, they interact with water. And that in turn manifests into what kind of taste and texture that you get at a very basic level. So the way we are trying to address is we cannot change the nature, but we can bend the laws of nature by understanding them well. And specific manifestation of this understanding is when we launched our ultra performance portfolio in 2022, one of the issues that we try to address is plant-based proteins inherently bring more off flavors with them, just because there's protein plus non-protein components that come with it. So in ultra performance, one of the issues that we wanted to address was with our flours and concentrates. How can you reduce as much of the undesirable planty notes, earthy notes, pea notes out so that your usage level in application can go up? And that was a very successful innovation for us in terms of getting the technology to move from Gen 1 to Gen 2. And similar approach we are now adopting to our isolate line, where we are looking at our Gen 1 isolates were providing a lot of nutritional aspects, but the taste, there was room to improve. Our Gen 2 isolates that are coming into the market, they do address some of the negative taste attributes. And for example, planty notes, sulfury notes are some of the common pain points that we hear from the market. So we have specifically designed very simple processes, which are not chemical based. They rely purely on mechanical or physical manipulations of the protein to give you a better taste profile. And most of the data that we see now where we are moving the needle significantly in the taste of proteins. And you will see those innovations as they get into the market, and we're getting tremendous feedback from our customers in how much we are able to move the needle on the taste and flavor of these proteins.
Mm-hmm. Dan, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so and I think it gets specific in application. So Akshay is on point, in terms of our product, but also, when we look at the application, particularly if we look at a nutrition bar versus a beverage, the protein is going to have to perform very differently. And it's one thing to have a clean tasting protein when we put it in water, but when we put it in application, that's also key as well. And so I think one of the things that we've done to improve, as Akshay said, we've kept our nutrition the same, but improve the functionality in specific applications. So for example, we launched at IFT this year a product we call 100 HD that's specific for nutrition bars that gives a nice texture, nice flavor, not only on day one, but on day 365, a year later after that product's been produced. So we're looking at same day freshness. And so taste being an aspect of the shelf life of a product as well, and really getting into those functionalities to deliver taste. Because, what may taste good in water solution may not taste good in a bar matrix that has, a syrup or a binder something else that may impact the flavor of that protein. And so engineering or developing proteins that taste great in applications has been some of the lion's share of our work, listening to the consumer, listening to the customer, and delivering upon those needs that exist in the marketplace right now that are a bit of some white spaces when it comes to plant-based protein.
Mhm. And obviously texture is another important consideration. So how are you helping your customers improve that particular area, making them more similar, I guess, to animal-based proteins, if we're talking about dairy or meat?
Yeah, very well said. I think I would say that texture in some instances is even more important than flavor for overall acceptance. And two examples I'll share from our recent work is when you talk about dairy, for example. Dairy is a gold standard protein, and culturally, it's been around for a very, very long period of time. So consumer base is very well rooted in what to expect when you are eating a dairy-based product. So one of the recent innovations we did was in when you think about dry blended beverages, which are customer takes a scoop, put in the water. And one of the texture issues in that is because of the nature of the protein, you want so much of this in that beverage. The texture comes across as gritty. And in some cases, if you let it stand for a few minutes, you see the sedimentation. So these are significant texture defects in dairy-like application. So one of the ways we try to address this is we went to the root cause of what causes these issues, and we understood if we are able to manipulate the solubility, for example, of the protein, or if we are able to impact the state of denaturation of the protein, it can significantly alter the way the proteins comes together to aggregate, and that in turn manifest in texture defects like grittiness or sedimentation or chalkiness. So that is one way by manipulating the solubility of the protein, we were able to address some of those texture issues. When it comes to meat-like applications, I think in meat-like application, the texture is not just about the fibrosity, but it's also about creating the juiciness of the alternative meat product. We did one study with Wageningen University in Netherlands 3-4 years ago, where we understood if is critical functionality that impacts juiciness is the water holding capacity of the proteins. And there we did a very deep design with the fava concentrate, and where we showed if we're able to manipulate the water holding capacity of fava, that can in turn lead to better juiciness in alternative burgers. So these are some of the ways we're trying to figure out how do we get an on-par texture with animal-like products using our plant proteins.
Now, I don't expect you to reveal any trade secrets there, Akshay, but are there any other innovations that you're developing to create that balanced mouthfeel?
Yes. Look, there is hardly a food that has only protein in it. Most foods come with protein and non-protein components. So that interaction of protein, non-protein components is very important to get the right kind of mouthfeel. An example of this is you have seen an explosion of alternative milks in the market. So, and the idea behind all of these is, yes, you want to provide the same level of nutrition, but you also want to provide milk-like mouthfeel in these products. And that mouthfeel doesn't come alone from the protein. And this is where our very rich portfolio at TIC comes of hydrocolloids. Shows that a very small amount of right kind of hydrocolloid can give you the right kind of mouthfeel and milk-like texture when you are ingesting. So gum acacia, gum arabic, when you use them in the right proportions, you can get to that right level of mouthfeel. And we understand those levels very well. But depending on your actual beverage, as an example, what kind of beverage you are trying to make, you can manipulate what kind of mouthfeel you want to get. So that's just one example. I don't, Dan, if you want to add any other from your experience.
It's also, I think about thinking about simple manipulation. So one of the things that's very popular is hydrolyzing proteins to achieve functionality. And, taking a step back, when we did our bar isolate, I think hydrolyzation comes with its own challenges. Typically the functionality is there, but the flavor is pretty negative. And so we took a mindset of saying, can we do this simply without hydrolyzing ergo cleaner label for the consumer, cleaner label for the customer. And then also from a processing standpoint, much easier to deliver upon. And so in this instance, taking a step back and saying, do we necessarily have to do this? Is there other ways to unlock that functionality that's key for that application without going extra steps in manufacturing that can add negative aspects to it, ergo cost, ergo flavor, that may not be positive. And so, I think it's a little bit of a mindset as we move forward is, do we have to go the traditional route of unlocking functionalities as the industry has done it? Or can we do this in a much simpler way to deliver upon that promise of a cleaner label, but delivering that taste and functionality that that consumer is looking for?
Look, it's been fascinating speaking with you both. We're just going to talk about the future for a few seconds. I mean, what emerging trends or technologies do you guys see as having the greatest potential to shape the future of this plant-based protein market?
I would say you would see a more evolution across the value chain. What I mean by that is innovations are not going to be just what happens in the manufacturing factory. I think you will see more innovation coming all the way at the farm level, where most of the alternative proteins that are coming to the market now, they are in fact not very old, maybe in some cases 15 to 20 years old. And we are learning more about them. And then I think with the more scientific advances at the farm level, at the breeding level, what can we do with the new crops to make them more functional or have them more beneficial right at the breeding stage? So you will see more innovation coming in that area. Example of that is more suppression of anti-nutritional factors in plant-based protein. Increase in the protein level. You will see more specific types of protein that are going to be bred within that plant itself, so that by the time you reach the factory, you don't have to do any of the chemical modifications that are typically done in the historic protein industry, right? So that's one. Other piece is we are trying to understand with the more tools from the biology side, how do you come to find the right kind of proteins? I think this is a very important factor to acknowledge when we say a pea protein or a soy protein or dairy protein. They are rarely just one protein. It's a mixture of protein. And our understanding of those mixtures, their structure, function, behavior is getting deeper with the tools that biology side, biotechnology side has developed. And I think there's a more and better understanding of those tools that enable us to fingerprint our proteins better, design our processes based on that understanding, and recover them better. So you will see that level of innovation. And third level of innovation I think you will see is how do these proteins get utilized in actual applications? Some of the applications we talk about today that did not exist 10 years ago. Think about alternative cheese, alternative yogurt, alternative milks. These are very new categories. And I think the innovations in our understanding of how does an application build, not only from top down, but bottoms up. How do you create that application element by element combined together? I think you will see more advances coming in all three pieces in the value chain. And not to forget, I think the consumer behavior is also going to be a very important driver in innovation. What I mean by that is, so far we are only limiting our conversation to replacing an existing animal-based food, right? But there is, in many cultures of the world, there are very genuine, original, only plant-based foods that are very well liked, right? And I think that there's a very large room to explore how do we create new categories of plant-based foods that did not exist before, instead of just thinking about how do we deconstruct a plant-based protein and replace an animal-based protein. So I think you will see innovations all the way across the value chain coming through.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an entirely different article in itself, Akshay. Dan, I met you at the Future of Protein Production in Chicago 3 or 4 months ago, and I know we discussed this at the time, but do you see a trend towards blending proteins to create new proteins, whether that be algae or cell cultivated?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, as Akshay said, you have proteins that were meant for a different function. And to unlock that functionality between that and, animal-based proteins or the application, you're definitely going to see a lot more blending, and it's already taken shape, whether it be blending with traditional animal proteins or insect protein and algal-based proteins, particularly because, I think Akshay really hit upon it. You're going to see a shift in the consumer base. So you're going from, baby boomers, Gen Xers that have the money and the power. In 3 to 4 years, that's going to shift to millennials and Gen Z. And so that their acceptance, their wants and needs are going to shape the industry a lot differently. And that could mean, blending proteins. It's already done today. I think you look at a lot of products, you look at a meatball, for goodness sakes, has soy protein to a far extent in it. But I think that's going to continue to be, the norm moving forward as we come out of this foodflation territory, and hitting some of those key textures, attributes, but also affordability for the end consumer is really going to be critical, that we look at some of these functionalities and combining those proteins to deliver, the perfect storm for the consumer, which is going to be taste, texture, nutrition, and affordability at the end of the day.
And my final question is probably going to be the hardest. I'm sure both of you are going to want to answer it. How are you, Ingredion, positioning yourself to capitalize on all of these trends that we've just discussed?
And there's a very strong belief in Ingredion that plant proteins are here to stay, and for a very simple reason. I think as the world GDP is improving, as economies are improving, there is going to be more preference. Can we get more meat-based proteins in our diets? But the reality remains there's only so much of the meat proteins that Earth can truly sustain. So to truly get to a place where we have balanced, good quality proteins throughout the world, it is very imperative. It's imperative that we create options and tool sets for consumption, right? So we are in this for the long term. We believe that it's going to be there for a long period of time. But to get it to the next level, now we need to continue to evolve the performance, continue to evolve the taste, continue to evolve the affordability. And I think there's a large runway in these categories where we have more work to do.
Final words to you, Dan?
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with Akshay, and I think it does require an ecosystem. So we partnered, with partners like MISTA, Plant Protein Innovation Center at the University of Minnesota. And so I think we're not necessarily going alone with this either. It's going to take some incubation with some other partners to achieve long-term goals. The other thing is, focus, so I think, taking off bites of meaningful chunks while we have the opportunity and not trying to do too much. I think a lot of times you can be guilty of trying to boil the ocean. I think of where plant-based was, 2 years ago. I think everybody was trying to get in it and the performance wasn't there. So I think taking a step back and saying, where can we perform in a meaningful way in the short term while not losing focus on the long term is also key to this, because, one bad experience with a consumer can have a lot of negative impact when they tell their neighbor, their friends down the street. And so want to continue to focus on good experiences and delivering that on a smaller scale while we continue to work with our partnerships to achieve some of those bigger innovations that Akshay, had mentioned. There's a lot of runway, but what's the right runway today while we focus on tomorrow?
Well, that's a great way to end it. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Dan, Akshay, I hope to meet you both. Dan again, Akshay for the first time at the Future of Protein Production Chicago next April, I think it is, 29th, 30th of April. It would be great to see you there. Look, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time.
It is a pleasure speaking to you, Nick.
Great.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Nick.